So I've been thinking a lot about what to talk about today, and everybody wants all the details about what's happening in Oregon and what's happening next, and we're just getting started. So I don't have all of the answers, and we'll be going to Ashley and Nicole for answers, and I'll give you some details about where we are and what's been happening. I've also been thinking, as I speak about endorsement across the state, about how we got here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got here, sort of all the people who've been involved in getting us here. But also I really have been thinking about my own professional career and about how I got here. And then Christy asked what gets you fired up. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about mentors and mentoring, about my mentors and about being a mentor. So here we go with the backstory. Infant mental health endorsement has been happening across the state way before we got involved, way before I got involved. And the backstory could go way back to when PSU things started, but this particular part, in 2013, I think it was in 2013, OHA, Workforce Development, Sherry Alderman and Robin Hill Dunbar pulled together a group of stakeholders from across the state and said, let's figure out how to best support and provide workforce development to our rural providers and to our whole state. That group met, I think, for 18 months, researched different ideas, came up with the endorsement as the best way to go, looked at some different ways that people did endorsement, looked at Michigan's program, chose Michigan, wrote a recommendation to OHA. In 2015, OHA engaged in contracting with the Oregon Infant Mental Health Association to bring endorsement to Oregon. Contracting was finished in October, and I was contracted with in November. I have to tell a tiny story that I was approved for contracting 3 days before the Alliance retreat. So I knew that I was the new endorsement coordinator for Oregon, and I got on a plane and I went to Arizona, and I wandered around with these people who were all experts from across the country, and they were talking in language I didn't understand. And the second day I raised my hand and said, I know I'm the baby in the room, but what is Wigio? You've all been talking about Wigio forever, which is their online system of sharing information. It was a quick orientation for me. How I got here is I started in mental health in 1991. I got my bachelor's degree in social sciences, and I went to work for an outpatient adolescent addiction treatment center. I worked in the family program there. I had done an internship in the family program, so I've always been really interested in family dynamics. I worked with adolescents. I worked at Donald D. Long doing evaluations. I did some school-based work and went back for my graduate degree, and then I got pregnant and fell asleep at school. And so I took a leave of absence, and then I had a baby, my daughter Rachel. And when I came home with her, she wouldn't sleep unless we held her. 2 weeks after only sleeping when we held her, when looking for this flyer that I'd pulled off the wall at the hospital when we were walking, when I was laboring, I'd pulled this flyer off the wall about a parent-baby group. And I found that, and I went there, and that's the little picture on the right is from that group. Judy McGee facilitated that group. She was a professor at Pacific Oaks. And that was my really first, we sat on the floor and watched babies and talked about what's happening for you at home? How do you feel about it? What do you think your baby feels about it? What's going on for that baby and this one? And I really got interested in both how people get support and what they do when things aren't working, and why it's different. Why are families different? Why is my baby different from my friend's baby? I also met a bunch of other moms who were interested in the same thing. That was my first very pivotal point. The next thing that happened, so I was doing some contract work at that time. Somewhere along the line I started teaching there, teaching a parent-baby group. I had another one at home, my son. This is a picture of my daughter holding him an hour after he was born. and him pushing her on the trike. So they were very different kids, my son and my daughter. My son we had to wake up to feed. He would sleep all the time until he started moving. And then when he started moving, he never stopped. So he was the one who would push the trike and she would ride on it. Those were sort of some of my first really pivotal experiences. I went back to graduate school to get my master's when my daughter was 5. And I was at Lewis and Clark in the counseling psychology program, and I really felt like an expert. I had been studying parents and babies for 3 or 4 or 5 years. I did some studying with Dr. David Willis, who was doing an early childhood preventative mental health study group in Portland. And I went into this program, and there was nothing in my graduate program on babies. I mean, there was a developmental program, there was a course on development, and we probably had a chapter. And that was it. And maybe there was a little bit on 3 to 5 in some of the child courses, but really not much. Very frustrating for me. By the time I got finished with that, I felt like the expert. After some time of working, someone, and it might have been Redmond, said, you know, PSU's starting this graduate program, you should come, because I was looking for information. I was working with the parents and babies at the hospital and working at elementary school. Couldn't find training, couldn't find information. Where are people getting it? PSU program was starting. I applied, I was admitted. I got there, and I felt like I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. I didn't know half of you existed or your fields of study. There were so many people in that first cohort that they really did a good job of selecting diverse fields and from across the state. And Mary Foltz and Redmond Reams were our mentors. And we used to call them mom and dad. You know, we were the first cohort, and nobody knew what was coming, and so we didn't know what was coming. We were all working full time and going to school on the side, and they did the professional development course that ran the whole span of the program. So we developed a relationship with them, and we got to say, I'm freaking out, I don't know what to do, and they were the holders for us. They held all that emotional stuff. So they were really fantastic mentors for me. Somewhere in that course, I had a professor, Dr. Patricia Blasco, who I had written a paper, and she said, you should publish this. I think you should publish this. I wrote a paper about sensory integration disorder and anxiety and mental health and co-treating between those two. And I never did write the paper, but I reached out to Lynette Burke, who ran a occupational therapy clinic that I had done some work with, and she and I started doing some collaborative work together and talking about the overlap between those. Amazing people. Then I became a professor at PSU, and I had the privilege of teaching folks in their internships. For several years, I was a supervisor of internships and got to meet a lot of people from across the state and go and see their work and talk with them. And that's where I met Robin Hill Dunbar. I was her practicum supervisor. She was another great mentor for me. And then, as many people know, Robin, through OHA and McVie money, started doing scholarships for people to attend courses at PSU. And I was teaching the intro course, the Introduction to Infant Mental Health course, as well as one of the cohort courses. And suddenly we had this influx of students. We had a huge influx of students, and we doubled the course offerings. And instead of doing 1 or 2 intro courses a year, I think I did 6 in a year. And I met people from all over the state who were passionate about this work, like I'm passionate about this work, and dedicated, and they're working 40 hours and taking care of their families, and they're trying to find information on the side, and they're in rural areas. And that's when it started dawning on me that these people don't have the same access to mentors that I had. They don't have access, and they're amazing people. And then I had an opportunity to go and do some face-to-face work, to do some trainings face-to-face and meet people in some rural areas, which was really special for me. That's sort of how I ended up here. And then I ended up getting contracted, and now, so what gets me fired up is meeting people who are doing this work and living their lives, and their lives are full, and they're dedicated and committed and wanting to make lives better for their families that they work with, and they don't have a lot of resources. And so how we can bring all of us together to share resources and create a community across the state is what gets me fired up. That everybody can have the opportunities to network and to have mentors and to learn from mentors and to access education and information that they need. That's what gets me fired up. So thank you, Christy, for thinking about that. So moving forward, I was contracted in 2015. We were awarded the Rural Oregon Infant Mental Health Endorsement Initiative by the Ford Family Foundation. That is a 3-year grant, and it's really designed to expand what we're doing from the base of the OHA grant to the rural counties. In February of 2016, we convened an endorsement advisory group of statewide stakeholders. You'll see them, they all stood up earlier. They're meeting once a month. It's another really amazing group of people who, add this work on. We all add this work on to our regular duties. And they have been just amazingly welcoming and brainstorming and creative thinking folks in that group. So I want to acknowledge them. And now, here we are, kicking off. We're kicking off. We don't yet have our version of EASY, which is the application system. We'll have it in a week. We anticipate and are planning on accepting applications July 1st. I skipped this piece. What's happening right now is our leadership cohort, which you heard 2 of them speak, have all applied for endorsement. 2 of them have been endorsed, and 5 of us are awaiting exam in September. Yay. Yeah. Somebody said to me, we're going to start the study group, right? We're going to do a study group. I said, don't talk to me about that until July. We're going to do kickoff, and we're going to have a orientation for all the rural specialists, and then we'll start the study group. We have 2 endorsed folks who live in Oregon, Sherry Alderman, who spoke earlier, in Redmond, and then we will have 6 more by the end. 6 more? 6 more. Well, Sherry's already endorsed, and she's adding another category, so she'll have a bag load of categories on her endorsement, in her endorsement package. And you're one of our 2 already. Yes, we have 2 folks who just got endorsed, Melly and Medora. Both earned their infant family specialist endorsements. They were notified on Monday. And so our cohort is receiving training this afternoon. There's strategic planning happening with some of the groups who've been meeting for some period of time around endorsement, and then tomorrow the leadership cohort is training on being advisors. So when you register to become endorsed, you will get an advisor from someone who has maybe not yet been endorsed, but has been through the application process and had their portfolio reviewed and has passed. So everyone will get an advisor. Many of them might get me as their advisor, depending on how big our applicant pool is. And then, so we'll be getting that training tomorrow and then in ongoing sessions. Right now, what's happening, our online easy system, it says application system is getting set up. We should be ready July 1st. You'll be able to register for the Infant Family Associate or the Infant Family Specialist on July 1st and begin assembling portfolios. The cutoff line for the first round of reviews will be October 1st. We actually have a calendar on our website at the very far right of the, someone's been working on the website. So there's a list of tabs at the top, and one of them is calendar, and now I'm not sure where it's located, but you'll see it. The dates are on that calendar that we know so far. So the cutoff will be October 1st, and then everyone who has completed and submitted by October 1st will be in a review period of, I think, a month. I think of the review period's a month, and then decisions will come. On October 1st, we'll also open up for registrations for infant mental health specialist and infant mental health mentor. Everyone in our first cohort will have taken their exam by then. Someone asked me the other day, I can't find any information on the website about the exam, and I said, yes, you're right. We have some information and we'll put it up, but I haven't taken the exam yet. And we don't have yet, our cohort is not ready yet to review. But there is some information, and you can go to Michigan, and I'll be putting that up as I get to it. I think that's that one. We have a process established for vetting reflective supervisors. So as you know, there are, we have one level 4 clinical endorsed person in the state. So if we're requiring reflective supervision from someone who's endorsed, no one can have that. So there's a process for vetting. We had a team of people do some vetting early and got a lot of really great information from that. I had hoped to have a document with information for you on the website before today. It's finished, but it's not up yet, so look for it next week. It sort of spells out what the vetting process looks like and what the requirements are. We're also looking for supervisors, and we'll be actively looking for folks who are qualified, those folks who meet the requirements, who meet the competencies, who have the master's degree, have done the work, are providing quality reflective supervision. We're going to be seeking them out to be vetted so that everyone that they're providing supervision for knows their supervision counts. So if you know someone that you think you want to have vetted, there's 2 ways to have vetting happen. One is a supervisor can contact me and say, I'd like to be vetted, I think I meet the qualifications. The other is you can apply, an applicant can apply, or an applicant can contact me and say, my supervisor, I think, meets qualifications, or do they, and we'll have a conversation about it. And then they can be vetted in that way. Our Oregon Infant Mental Health Rural Endorsement Initiative is up and running. We're in the process of contracting with rural endorsement specialists for a number of counties in the state. They should be contracted with and getting oriented in July and starting in August. They'll be available to answer questions and provide applicant support in their areas. We're hoping that everyone's going to be having drop-in sessions where people can actually come face-to-face and get some computer support or get some, how do I make sense of this paperwork support. They can provide outreach to groups in their counties, do presentations. Today we have 3 folks who have agreed to be contracted with the Oregon Infant Mental Health Association. I want to introduce them very briefly. Tracy Colachico, can you just stand up for a moment and wave and then sit down? You don't have to stand the whole time. Thank you, Tracy. Tracy's our representative for Deschutes, Crook, and Jefferson counties. Tracy's a behavioral health specialist in Deschutes County. She is a current student in the PSU Infant Toddler Mental Health Graduate Certificate Program with anticipated graduation in August. August? Yeah, yay. Tracy coordinated NMT training for her county across a variety of groups and brought Bruce Perry's learning into the county for 18 months? A long period. A year long, yeah. And Sherry participated in that, Sherry Skillings, who's on our board of directors. So we're really glad to have her. When I called Tracy to tell her that we were contracting with her, she said, I only have a minute, I'm on my way to a softball game. And I play softball, so I thought that was a fun thing we have in common. When I called her references, she had really glowing references, and I said, do you have any concerns about Tracy? And they said, well, don't steal her. We think she'd be great as long as you don't give her too much work. I want to introduce Hannah Stanfield. Stand up. Thank you, Hannah. Hannah is our endorsement specialist for Coos County. Hannah is also a current student in the same class as Tracy in the PSU Graduate Infant Mental Health Certificate Program. Hannah called me Well, Hannah's a early Head Start home-based manager in her county. She called me when I put out the rural endorsement recruitment and said, hey, have you hired for Douglas Coos yet? I want to support that person. What do they need help with? I want to get help in our counties. And I said, really? Why don't you do this job? I think you should apply, Hannah. And she said, no, I can't. I can't. I work full-time. I can't do 24 more hours a month. And then later, we came up with this great job share idea, and so I came back to her. In the meantime, she said, you're coming to Coos Bay? I'm going to coordinate something. And so I was going there to visit, and she had set up a presentation for me to present on endorsement with all of the partners, and a bunch of staff came, and it was all ready to go. And I said, hey, I want to talk to you about this job again. I have this job again, and it's less hours now. So we're very happy to have Hannah. After that meeting, she told me that weekend she was on her way to go skydiving for her birthday. Very exciting. And Allison Henson. Allison has a brand new position as the behavior service coordinator for Douglas ESD. She's our Douglas Rural Endorsement Specialist. She had initially been interested in doing both counties, and she had 2 jobs, plus she was going to add this one. And so we had done a really great interview. Christy Cox and Robin Hill Dunbar had called me and said, or sent me a message and said, hey, you got to meet Allison. This is going to be really great. Allison's going to be great. And then she got this new job working for the ESD and called me and said, I can't do this. It's too many hours. I'm really bummed. I can't do it. And I went down to visit. And she came and met with me and some other folks to talk about endorsement. And she said, hey, I have this great idea. Let's do a job share. What if we did a job share? Would you think about that? And we went, hey, well, why not? Why not? I'd already talked to Hannah, and I really wanted Hannah, but Hannah wouldn't do it because it was too many hours. So these are our creative team of folks for Deschutes for Coos and Douglas counties. Other things that are happening with the Rural Oregon initiative, we have scholarships available for registration and application fees for anyone working in a rural community. Rural community is defined as a city of less than 30,000 and not a suburb of a city of 30,000. So those applications are available online right now. You can go on the website to Endorsement and then Rural Oregon. And then there's 2 tabs. There's actually a tab for endorsement specialists, and nothing's on there right now except meet our endorsement specialists. But as we contract with, we'll probably have a group of 7 when we start in July. You'll be able to see their photos there, their names, how to contact them, what's happening. We have 3 phases of rural endorsement specialists. And so I wrote down when they start somewhere. The second phase starts in May of 2017. If you don't see your county group there, they'll probably be coming in May of 2017 or in March of 2018. So there's 3 phases. By the end of the 3rd phase, we will have had a rural endorsement specialist covering every county excluding Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas. And that's because I'm there. So those are easy places that are already being served. So the scholarships are there as well. The only qualification is that your families, 40% of your families live in a rural community. The application, the form is very easy. It's kind of 2 parts. So do the first part and I'll look and see if you qualify. You just send them in to me. And then you'll get a second part that's a little more detailed that will help you prepare to access the EASY system to do the registration. We'll also we have scholarships available for reflective supervision groups for applicants, again, in the same categories who's serving families or providers who are serving families. And 5 groups, 6 groups? It's a little bit under development at this moment, but there could be up to 5 groups for each of the 10-month phases. And they could be for practitioners, direct groups for practitioners, or they could be for supervisors. Our goal is to develop capacity. So if we have supervisors who are supervising practitioners, it's more advantageous for all of us to get reflective supervision for the supervisors who are going to be continuing to supervise their staff ongoing. So we'll have more information as that becomes available, but if you're interested in participating or in finding out more about how can we get supervision for our supervisors, you can contact me or you can contact Redmond. Whoops. Watch our website. Things are coming up. We're continuing to develop. I guess I wanted to say in closing that, well, I'll take questions too, but when I started this job, I felt kind of isolated because I am the only paid staff. I'm half-time, and some of my team at OHA had switched positions, and I wasn't quite sure who my people are, and I was trying to figure out, well, who do I talk to about, everybody on the board, everybody has full-time jobs, and they're really doing a lot of work on the side. And now I'm connected to 3 or 4 different groups of people from across the state who are doing amazing work and who host me when I travel and are gracious and are interested and have good ideas, and many of them are in the room, and I know that there's a lot more out there I haven't met yet. That's my vision for us, that we can all be connected and working together to support our practitioners and ultimately our babies. We have 7 minutes left for questions, if folks have questions about what's happening in Oregon. Lori.
Paige, are you putting out any kind of announcements to the community mental health centers or to the other universities besides PSU or other venues where people who are interested in this feel that they know that this is available?
Lori's question is about outreach and who are we outreaching to and how are we doing it. I have been, well, our advisory committee has been doing outreach, hopefully. Through our advisory committee, we have been doing some outreach. I have been going and speaking to groups, mostly groups of statewide folks. So if there's a gathering I spoke for the executive directors of the relief nurseries from across the state who are gathered all in one place. I spoke to early intervention contractors for the state who were gathered in one place. So we've been doing outreach in that way. We have a volunteer who has been doing outreach to higher education systems, Lynn Collins, who's in the room somewhere. Lynn, raise your hand. Oh, she went out. Okay. Lynn has done outreach to both mapping and then contacting all of the higher education programs. There's a little bit of a capacity issue about how much we can do time-wise, but that's on our list as well. The CCOs, I'm going to be coming to you for that, Lori. How do we do that? Really, it's on my list, and particularly the Multnomah Clackamas, the urban area, because that's going to be my place to reach out. Once we get the rural endorsement specialist from this first phase going, that will be a goal.
Is there a plan to do outreach to child welfare?
It's on my list. It's on my list for the rural specialists, honestly. The local, we're doing strategic planning this afternoon, and we should figure that out this afternoon. It's definitely on the list for the rural specialists who are in their own counties to look at all groups that, we have our Ready, Set, Go partners, Healthy Families, Nurse Family Partnerships. There's groups that are already been waiting. They know about endorsement nationally. They're waiting for endorsement to happen. And then there's groups that maybe don't know anything about it in Oregon. And once we get started and we are operational, we need to look at how we're going to reach those other groups.
maybe how much time to take total, but like how many hours? Like it's a 20-hour process or it's a 90-hour process?
That is a really good question. I might start with Medora, who is an infant family specialist, because I think it's really different. I mean, yeah. I think it's really different depending on which category you're applying for.
The
Oh.
other thing I would say is it also differs. Many of you did like one shot. You know, you knew you were going to do it, so you did it all at once. Many of the people I imagine that you'll be meeting with as the endorsement specialist can be working on it over time. So we encourage people to enter their trainings over time. You guys didn't do that. You know, the leadership cohort knew you were the identified people and you sat down and you did it. So it probably felt like a lot of time right then, but if you're able to do it as you go, which is how we encourage many people to do it, it feels different. So probably the same amount of time put in, but it doesn't feel as heavy, if that makes sense.
And I think if you did a program that's been crosswalked, that's a lot easier. So the PSU Infant Toddler Mental Health Program is already crosswalked. Healthy Families, I think. So I've seen a crosswalk, but I don't know if it's been approved by Michigan.
Yeah.
But it sounds like yes. So Healthy Families America has crosswalked their training. So if you've done all of their training, then you've met competencies for infant family specialist. Nurse Family Partnerships, they're working on crosswalking in Washington right now, that training. So when that's done, the crosswalk will be done there.
That's highly variable.
Yes, highly variable.
Highly variable.
I think we better wrap up. I think Redmond's got some closing comments. Thank you.
So I want to thank all our presenters today and give them another round of applause because for all the information and wisdom that we've heard. And I want to thank all of you for coming and being interested in infant mental health endorsement and taking the time to come here. I think it's been a wonderful morning. And I'd let you know that we videotaped all of this. It's going to be on we'll have a YouTube channel in essence for RIMHA, and so there'll be links on the website. So for all your partners at agencies that you're at who didn't have a chance to be here, probably in the next few weeks we'll get this available to you so that you can look in chunks. You don't have to just do a 3-hour piece, but you'll be able to look in segments at all the information that was presented this morning. And again, thank you very much for coming. And enjoy the rest of your day. So.